Okay, I'm back after a long pause at making videos. For some reason, for a while there, I just didn't feel like making them anymore. I felt like I almost said what I had to say, and I just kind of go with whatever the inspiration of the moment is. But today I woke up and felt like going for a morning walk and maybe having a few words to say about truth. And I've talked about it before, but I've been doing just some sort of my own, you might say, reading and investigation or exploration into self-knowledge, however you want to describe it. And you know, everything's new every day. Like, that's, I don't know, I want to say trick in a way, but the key to self-knowledge, right, is seeing yourself every single day freshly without the past ideas interfering. You know, your past ideas and concepts and all that. Which is why, like, truth is not a thing you figure out and then write it down and then pass it along to others or even to yourself and say, that's truth. But truth is what we must find, right? But not find. It's like understand. What is it? And what gets in the way of knowing it, not knowing it, but experiencing it. And these are all, you know, the words are just flopping around, and I'm sure they're wrong, because I'm not talking about knowing truth in any way that you know a skill or know, you know, how to ride a bike or drive a car or do math or whatever it is. That's skill knowledge. But it's very important to have self-knowledge, but not of that type. You know, that type of knowledge which is really accumulated past history, memories, is what prevents us from seeing truth. It's a hindrance to seeing truth because our mind is filled with so much knowledge. It's the problem, not the solution. And we want to come at this issue of truth or self-knowledge, which really are the same thing. The most important thing is to know yourself, who you really are, though, what you really are, and not impartially but wholly, you know, completely. And anything done through thought is not complete. We've gone over this many times. It's something to go into yourself, though, because it doesn't matter what I say, which is the other thing. This can't come from anybody, any person, including me. I'm just pointing out things that I see, that I am working through, in a sense, and being aware of. And if we were together in some way, I would be talking to you just as a friend talks, not in any way of knowing something that someone else doesn't know. That's the whole problem. The world is full of people that think they know something that they want to pass on. That's the problem. It's exactly what we need to get away from. That particular perspective of there's a method, there's a path, there's a belief system, there's a religion, whatever it may be, is the very problem that we're going into, because that's what the world does now. And look at where it's at. Look at the state of the world. And you don't need to know any more than to say all of that is not right. Right? Having a belief system or religion or whatever it is, or even having no beliefs, you know, having your, on the opposite end, I would lump, I'll just call it atheism, right, into that category, because as far as I'm concerned, it's the same. instead of investigating truth on your own, you're either rejecting everything, which the rejection of things in itself contains the things you reject, right? This is what's so important, right? An opposite contains its opposite. So if we wanted to say atheism is the opposite of religious belief, but if it's the opposite of something, it contains that thing within it. If you oppose violence and say, you practice nonviolence, right? Which is kind of absurd, because you don't practice nonviolence. That's like saying you practice peace in between wars. The wars still go on. Just because you're not fighting in between wars doesn't mean that you are at a state of peace, right? It's not practicing non-war. It's like, that, and that's exactly what it is, though, right? The peace we talk about these days, even in the world, is temporary, and it's not peace. It's simply we're in between wars. It's kind of like when people say, instead of saying I'm unemployed or whatever, it's like I'm in between jobs. And that is not the same as true peace. And that is not the same as ending violence. Violence, saying I'm practicing nonviolence is like, you're not getting it, what you really need to do is look at the violence within you that is real. Or the hate or anger or fear or whatever it is. Don't try to practice the opposite of the thing that is real. The thing that is real are all those things. We are anger, fear, violence, hate. That's us, right? We're not separate from those things. But we might see the negative effects of that and say, well, I don't want to be those things. Well, guess what? You are. And to say you don't want to be something and practice things that you think are going to remove those things from you somehow is like trying to change your skin color. It's not going to happen. What you want to do is observe what you actually are, not pretend to be something you aren't. To see those characteristics, your behavior, whatever it is, observe it fully and completely while it is happening, while it is unfolding, and to see that you are not separate from those things. There's no me that is separate from the anger, the hatred, or the violence. We don't want to accept that. We want to assume we're some perfect being hiding within ourselves that every once in a while experiences violence, hate, fear, desire, whatever, take your pick. But then we don't want those things. So then at a later time, we want to pretend that we are not those things by practicing their opposites. All the while, those are still there. So you just enhance, by practicing the opposite, you're not understanding the first thing. Right? You're not understanding what violence is. So how do you know to practice nonviolence? How do you know you're really practicing nonviolence? If you don't even understand what violence is, and understand where it comes from, and how it arises, and not intellectually, but within yourself, when these things are occurring, which is the truth. Right? The truth is what's actually happening. It's so simple. And everything else is not truth, which are all the ideas we come up with, the words we create to describe these things, the ideas we have about these things, the ideological systems we build up to combat these things, or to whatever. We just don't understand. It's like being trapped in this delusional thing where we can play whatever games we want with thought, when thought is the problem. So you can't combat thought with thought. You can't say, I'm just going to come up with another thought to combat that first thought. It's not how it works. And how do you know that? By observing your own thoughts. And what are thoughts? By understanding all these things, the nature of these things. To know one thought isn't going to get rid of another thought. It's kind of absurd, right? A thought comes from memory, which is in your brain. Another thought is not going to erase that memory. It's not going to get rid of that conditioning that led to that behavior. It simply adds to it. And so you can have another thought about it, but you're not eliminating the memories or the content or the conditioning in the brain. That thought isn't erasing anything. It's not getting rid of anything. It's just adding more conditioning to battle the original conditioning. But then you set up conflict and war within your mind. And then thoughts are fighting each other. I thought of the Bhagavad Gita because it talks about war, right? And in that sense, we have these warring components, these warring parts within ourselves that are fighting each other. And the solution is not to just create more problems by creating more thoughts to battle the thoughts that some other thought decided was unsatisfactory. It's to see this whole process completely and wholly, the entire mess, all of it at once, holistically, not apart, not one thought, another thought, another thought, the entire thought process. That's how you do it. You have to see thinking. What is thinking? And then to understand that all of this comes from thinking. It's like to step outside the game. Because while you're playing the game, it's like you're not seeing that it's a game. No matter how you move things around or what color piece you're using on the board, it's a game and you're stuck in the game, and as long as you think you're in that game, you can never get out of the game, no matter how many changes you make or how many, it's like you have to step outside and realize, in the same way that when you're playing a game, right, you can become immersed in the game, but then when you step back a second and say, wait a second, it's just a game, it's just make-believe, it's ideas, it's not real, don't get caught into it. Or like a movie, that the movie's playing and you can get caught up into a movie, and in a good movie, a lot of times that's what you do, right? You get caught up in the characters and all that, when in reality, it's all pretend. It's not real. It's dialogue. Somebody wrote a script, actors are portraying it, but there's an illusion that it is real in some sense, right? And suspending disbelief, or whatever they say, is the goal of a good movie. But to see it all, and it doesn't mean you can't enjoy movies, right? But you just have to know it is a movie. It is real. And in that sense, in some sense, that is what you can see your life in the same regard. In the same way that you may become emotionally invested in, like, say, a movie that's playing, once you realize it's a movie, you can step back and see the truth of it and appreciate it for the art that it is. The fact that this is, an amazing production. Whatever the special effects, the characters, all that, you can just sort of see it for what it is and say, okay, but now you're not worried anymore, right? If the character dies in the movie, you're not really dying with that character. Like, you're just seeing it as sort of an impartial observer. But in the same way, it's like if you can see yourself in your life as something of like that movie, or like this thing that's playing out, that all this stuff is happening, but what is actually happening? Do you really know? If you're caught up in the idea space of everything, then you're going to get caught up in this world of ideas, this universe of ideas that has only gotten worse with social media and everything. Now you're immersed in just so many ideas all the time that you have to step back from that and not separate yourself from it all, but see what's happening. Right? This is why what's so important is to just see, not to judge, not to have an opinion, not to fight what's happening, not to decide that there's a better way of things happening and I'm going to make that better way happen, because that idealism is just as bad. That's what's got us to this point. Everyone has ideas of what's better. Then they act on those ideas, and then it just ends up recycling, and we're where we are now despite everyone thinking they had a better idea for thousands of years, tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of years, everyone thought they had a better idea. And has that led us to a better place, to a better life, a better way of living? I would argue no. In fact, we're probably at the worst point, on the verge of destroying ourselves and this planet because of that process, and because everybody thinks they have a better idea. That's what you need to see. That's the truth. The truth is to see what's happening and to see that this is just a progression of thousands of years of humanity over and over again having a different idea and then acting on that idea. Think of how many ideas have come and gone. All the cultures that have come and gone, right? The ancient cultures, the Egyptians and Sumerians, and I mean, go back further, we don't even know in pre-recorded history how many ideas people have had. We see paintings on cave walls of ideas that people had about the world they were in, and then they create these ideas, and then these ideas become their reality, right? In ancient Egypt, what they believed, they were. Well, this is true of everyone. What you believe, you are. So if you construct a belief system and then take that to be real, then you live according to that belief system, which is not truth, because it's belief. It was constructed of a mind. Anything constructed of the mind out of thoughts is not truth. It is partial information. To see that, right? So this is why truth is so important, because truth is truth. There's no my truth, your truth, or a belief system. Belief has no place where truth is concerned. Ideas have no place where truth is just what's happening. Can you see what's happening without cluttering it, without dressing it up with your ideas? And your ideas are the past. Your ideas come from your memories, which are past experience, accumulation in the brain. And how we act almost every moment of every day is we act according to that baggage that we carry. Call that baggage conditioning, call it the past, call it memories, call it whatever you want. It doesn't change what it is. It's what is stored in your brain in one way or the other. We don't have to know how. We don't have to go into neuroscience to understand that. It's not even important, because you can observe your own thoughts. You can observe that, right? You don't need to know. Like people thousands of years ago that observed their mind did not need to know neuroscience. It's not necessary. That's knowledge, which is partial and incomplete. Observing your thoughts is an experience, right? There's no words that can describe that experience, and there's no substitute for experience. But even now, we don't really experience. We experience through the past, right? Because there's experience and then there's experiencing. What's happening right at this instant, right in this moment, is experiencing truth. But the minute we process that, the minute we store it in our brain as a memory, as a sensation, which all we can store in the brain are the sensations, right? Your brain is the center of your sensations, your sensory system, recording, always recording what's experiencing. So when you remember the experience in the brain, you're remembering partially whatever was recorded, not what really was or what really is, but just a partial faded imprint, like a bad black and white photograph, right, of reality. And that becomes your reality. If you take those pictures, those images, those bad partial recordings, right, there's no recording method that's perfect, because there is no substitute for experience. There's no, like, that's the truth, right? To see that there is something that cannot be captured within the realm of thought, that the immeasurable cannot be captured with what is measured. The infinite cannot be captured with the finite. And this is why to not deny that there is an infinite, to deny that there is something sacred. It's just your idea of it is wrong, because any idea of it is wrong. If you really want to know what is, right, what is sacred, what is infinite, what is immeasurable, if there is, and there may not be. Certainly, you can't do that through any construct of the mind or of thinking, of thoughts. You can't capture it. There's no way to capture truth like that. Because truth is what is happening. How do you capture what's happening? You can't. You have to just be aware of what's happening in every moment. And it changes constantly. So that's why truth has no path, because there's no truth you can write down. There's no fixed point. Truth is like this ever-changing what is happening now, right? So you have to be sensitive. You have to be aware of what's happening now. And that awareness, just simply seeing that constant flow, constant changing, constant, you don't want to say being or becoming, because again, that brings in all the ideas of I want to become something better or be something better or be something different. Those are bad words too, because they all bring in comparison. Become, especially, because you want to become something other than what you are right now. What you are right now is the truth. And then you want to become something that is not true. Some idea you have about yourself that is just an idea. Again, so what do you want to do? Don't do that. But again, don't fight that. Don't say, I have to fight that becoming. Don't fight it. Observe that that's just what your mind does. You don't fight it, you observe it. Be aware of it. Pay attention to it. And merely through the process of observing and paying attention to your mind, the entire process of thinking, not just one thought, the entire game, right? To see the entire game as thought. It's not my thought's better than your thought, this thought is better than that thought. Like, it's nothing like that. Right? It's not that. That's the game we play, though. It's everybody. It's like we're so used to comparing belief systems. We're so used to comparing, one piece of information against another piece of information to try to ascertain what is true and what is false. Facts are not true or false either. A fact is a fact. The sun setting and rising is a fact. It's what happens. It's not, I have to decide whether that's true or false. It is what is happening. If you're, what's happening right now around me, right, are all these things. I see plants and flowers and this trail and the trees and all around me. And one could say, well, it's an illusion. I mean, you could say that, right? But again, why say anything? Why classify it as an illusion or not an illusion? Being aware of just this, whatever it is, right? Not saying it's real or not real, but just being aware of that. That is the fact. It's the only fact. The only facts are what is happening. Everything else is made up. And that's kind of scary, because people might say, well, no, I mean, no. The only facts are what is happening now. And truth is to see those facts directly, to perceive them directly without cluttering, without interpreting, without judging. Not to see the memory of what's happening, but to see what is happening now. And it's almost impossible if the mind is cluttered and not silent. Right? So this is the thing. A silent mind, to see what is, the mind can't be busy. It can't be occupied. It can't be distracted with everything in the world, because then it's focusing on itself. It's turning inward. A busy mind, a mind with a lot of thoughts passing through it, is not silent. It's busy with the thoughts, so it's not paying attention to what's around. So there's silence, but the silence, so this is where people get messed up. Okay, so I need to practice silencing the mind. Who's going to silence the mind? The very thing you are trying to silence. You can't silence the mind. The mind may be silent, but you can't silence it. And this is so important to understand the difference, because on one hand, you think some part of you is going to silence the rest of you. Well, that part that is doing the silencing also needs to be silent. So you can never be silent as long as any part of the mind is acting of its own accord, or acting of thought. So the method, this is why, this is the, it's just obvious when you see it, that there's no method. Because a method comes from thought and thinking. And to be practiced, it requires thought and thinking. So you can never silence, thought will never be silent with any practice. Because the very practice is what you're trying to silence. And it's like, you can only, it's obvious. And see, just seeing that, then you give up all, seeing the truth of that statement, which, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not wrong. But if you look at that yourself and say, okay, well, wait a second. Let's examine that for a minute, right? Don't take what I'm saying as truth. I said before, none of us can convey our truth or the truth to another, but examine that on your own and say, is it true that every practice, and this includes all the meditative practices, all the Zen and Buddhist and Tibetan and I don't know, whatever you want to call it, all those are practices which somebody came up with. And they did. You can't deny that. You didn't come up with it. Somebody came up with those methods and told you about it and said, do these things and you will get a reward. The reward may be your mind will be silent, you will be at peace, you will be in harmony, right? There's got to be a carrot at the end of it. And that's the first thing you have to realize. That seeking a reward or seeking a carrot is the problem. That's thought at it again, saying, I want something, I want to be comforted, I have pain in my life, and I don't want that pain in my life. Pain in your life is real. So see the pain in your life. That's the reality. That's the fact. You want to change that fact and say, I don't want that pain in my life. So tell me what to do so I can not have that pain in my life. So I want to be peaceful. I want to silence my mind. Then I don't have all those thoughts anymore. So you practice something somebody tells you to do, Vipassana meditation, whatever it is. Doesn't matter. It's all the same. With the hope of achieving something, silencing of the mind, enlightenment, nirvana, all of which are concepts. You wouldn't know what the meaning of any of those words were if you hadn't heard about them before. Don't look them up if you don't know, because it's best not to know, because it doesn't matter. That's the problem. What's happened is we've become so used to this that we think the truth must be out there in one of these ideas. Certainly, billions of people wouldn't practice something on this planet if it was wrong. Well, sure they would. That very thought is the reason why billions of people practice something. And you can't say truth is a statistical thing. Whatever the most people in this world do must be true. Maybe you think the way to pick the right religion is to just see how many people in the world practice various religions, and then say, the one that is practiced by the most must be the truth. No, because you're forgetting the possibility that they all could be wrong. And all you're doing is joining the club that's most wrong, right? Most appealing to people. Because that's the other thing. You pick what appeals to you. Of all the religions and everything, you might think you're, somehow you're, I don't know. Maybe you were born a Christian and now you study Buddhism and you think Buddhism's better than Christianity. But you don't see that you've just traded one problem for another. Because regardless of what the Buddha said and taught, and we don't really know, we may not know that whole thing. We only know what people have told us about these people. I mean, the Buddha, if he existed, was 2,600 years ago. Maybe he existed, maybe he didn't. You can't go by what people think. You can't go by, well, yes, because there's lineage and it's been passed on and all these traditions have been passed on. Maybe. And then you can say, oh, well, no, there's stuff that's written down and it was written down at the time of the Buddha and by his... Maybe. I don't know that that's true. And the same thing can be done with Christianity, right? People argue about the Bible and it's God's word or Jesus's word. Well, how do you know? Maybe. I don't know any of that. Don't know any of that to be true. And you can argue about it and you can try to gather evidence for and against any of that. Why? See, you just get caught up in an endless search for evidence to try to prove your case without saying, why am I trying to do that? Why do I want to believe? What is that thing within me that wants to believe? That's the more important question. Not what to believe, but why do I want to believe? Examine that. Why are you searching for something? Why is it that you're trying to find something to believe in? What's motivating that? What's behind that? That's, if you go into that, right? Because that's the truth. The truth is something in you is making you, compelling you to find answers. So you seek answers, and you seek them one place or travel all the way around the world to Tibet and seek them there when there's the same as here. There's no difference. And then if you see, the seeking process itself must end, right? The seeking is simply more of the same punishment and reward. You want something that you don't have. You're incomplete. You don't see who you are right now. You don't observe it, but you're not happy with it, with who you are. But you don't even know who you are. But you're not happy with who you are. You want to be happier. You want more fulfillment. I want to be more fulfilled, more perfect, more peaceful, more still. And you think going and practicing these things, and you will achieve something, but not truth. You'll achieve, sure, you can hypnotize yourself. You can enter into hypnotic trances and sit still and stand on your head for a week at a time. I mean, I imagine there's all sorts of things that people can achieve, but they're all achievements, not the truth. Personal ego drives all of that. You want to achieve something, gain something. I want to gain enlightenment or whatever. It's just absurd. It's nonsense when you see it all. When you see the truth, it's nonsense. All of that. And that's the difference between the part and the whole. Because then when you see the truth that all belief systems, all religions, all traditions currently are essentially the same. Because they're all derived from thought, which comes from the mind, the brain, and it's like there's no appeal anymore to, no one's going to sit and convince me, let's look at it this way, anymore, that there's one belief system, one ideology, one religion that is somehow better than any others. Like, I've abandoned all that. It's all abandoned. Just dropped. Not rejected, dropped. As not important. Right? Because to reject it, to actively reject, goes back to the atheism, goes back to, you judge people who think that, and you try to say that's wrong and this and that. It's like, it's just, when you see, it's like an illusion. If people are caught in that illusion, they are caught. And, I have plenty of my own illusions. It's like, there's no judgment of that, but it just loses its importance. It's not part of the conversation anymore, right? It's gone. And then it's like, well, what is, you're still left with the question. Well, what is truth? How do I discover it on my own if I abandon all the traditions, all the thing? But see, you can't just abandon the traditions. Your own mind can create its own traditions. That's where you have to be careful, because you'll just create your new religion. Right? Why do we have so many religions in the world? Because everyone thought they knew better. And they started their own belief system because they felt their belief system was better than the other belief. And even within Christianity and Catholicism, there's so many different belief systems. I mean, there was just the schism that occurred in the Catholic Church. A group of ultra-Orthodox priests, I guess, started by, I don't know, it was someone in France a while ago, rejected the Vatican II Council way back then. But they just recently, ordained their own bishops without the approval of the Pope or the Catholic Church, and for that they were all excommunicated, and there was a schism that was declared by the Pope. Doesn't this all just seem ridiculous? Like, it's ridiculous. Like, on both sides, right? On both sides. Like, what kind of game are you playing here? Excommunication, schism, and our beliefs are more correct than your beliefs. And I think the whole reason these people do what they do is because they believe the Catholic Church has strayed from its tradition, from its truth, from its origins, right? But the Catholic Church would, or at least the official Catholic Church, would strongly disagree with that. So there's a battle. There's a conflict of ideas. We think what was originally, traditionally done is more correct. The Catholic Church disagrees, the Pope disagrees, and there is conflict, and there always will be conflict as long as any religion is based on ideas, because people will always have their own ideas, different ideas. And this is why when you see it all, it just ends, because it's like, it's a game. It's like seeing children playing a game and just seeing the pointlessness of that game. But then also understanding, it is very important that we understand true religion, true truth, but it's not that, right? So it's like, it starts by negation, negating what is not truth. You have to start there, right? If there is any path, right, it's see the untruth in what you're doing now, right? Drop what is not true, not search for what is true. There's a very big difference. Observe what is not true, and in the observing of what's not true, maybe truth emerges. Not by you seeking any particular truth, by any method, but observing what's happening right now, and saying what's happening in the world, and what's happening in you, and this entire thought process, from start to finish, the entire thing, and say, hold on, you can't just look at one part of it. You can't just. So this is where examine who you are, examine the fear, examine your reliance on authority, examine your beliefs, observe, pay attention to the beliefs, to the thoughts that arise, to who you are now and what has made you who you are. Observe the conditioning that has led you to be where you are, the things you were taught, the things you were raised to believe were true. Observe all that, and observe others as well. Observe your relationships. Observe how you interact. Observe what you say versus what you do. Is there a contradiction between what you say and what you do? Is there a difference? Is there a conflict? Observe your life, right? Don't just imagine things, or don't just try to enter a meditative state of silence thinking that is going to bring about peace in your life. It's almost the opposite of what everyone does, which is funny and probably explains why the world is in such a mess. Because we think, practice something, it will bring about peace. Practice something, it will bring about silence and love and compassion. It's like the other way around. It's like observing these things about us, who we are, may bring about silence, may bring about love and compassion, but not by seeking those things or practicing those things, by practicing the positive, but by observing the negative. Observe what is not love. Observe what is not compassion. Observe and pay attention to where all this comes from and the thoughts that originate it, and not by thinking about it, not through analysis, because you can get caught up again if you analyze, because analysis is, that analytical process is the problem. The breaking apart, the determination of cause and effect that may prove useful in technology, but not in understanding yourself, not in a holistic way. We can understand parts about ourselves, parts of the body, parts of the brain and the mind through neuroscience and all that. Parts. That's the key thing. Partial knowledge, not complete knowledge, not truth. Because truth is a whole. There's no part truth. There's no, I know part of the truth. No, there's to know truth or to not know. And there's no in between. And knowledge is just an accumulation of little bitty, informative and perhaps useful in its own limited way. But that's not what we're trying to do here. So, can the mind be silent? I mean, we said silence is necessary to see truth because it requires a sensitive mind. Right? You can't learn anything if you're talking and noisy. You can't even learn any subject in school if you're talking, right? You have to, if you're trying to learn something in class, you have to pay attention to the teacher. It's the key, pay attention. And you can't be thinking about what you're going to do after class. You can't be on your phone. You can't have a conversation with somebody next to you and still learn what the teacher is trying to convey. You have to be silent. You have to pay attention. See, not be silent. The very act of paying attention brings about silence. When you're paying attention to the teacher in class, you're in a state of silence because your mind's not being distracted and you want to learn what the teacher is conveying, right? And that very act of paying attention allows you to learn. You learn by paying attention. So we can learn about ourselves by paying attention, not to a teacher, but by paying attention to what's actually happening. We become our own teacher. The teacher and the student are the same. Now, don't teach me to observe or pay attention to myself. There's no method to that, any more than there's a method to say, pay attention to that teacher in class. It comes when you're interested. It comes when you, and you know, in that attention, there's also, I want to say like a love or a compassion, because it's one and the same, right? If you care about something, that's the word I was looking for, care. You pay attention because you care, right? Something about you cares about learning or cares about the person that you're listening to. If you care about somebody, you listen to them. If you don't care about somebody, you don't listen to them. They may be talking and you're thinking about, I can't wait until I get away from this person. So more importantly, there's other deeper things to go into. So, all right. So I think that's another very important relationship, is caring. The relationship between caring and attention, right? That's so important. You must care to pay attention. You know, if a child is telling you a story and you care about that child, you pay attention to what they're telling you, even if it could be nonsense or it could be whatever, right? It could be, you know, something that you think is funny or cute, or it doesn't matter what it is. If you care about that person, that child, whoever it is, you listen to what they're telling you. And to listen, you have to pay attention. By paying attention, there is silence. The mind is not busy. You're not practicing silence. See, this is the whole thing. You're not practicing to be silent so you can listen to the child. You're simply paying attention. There's no practice to it. Just like opening your eyes and you see. Nobody needs to teach you to pay attention. Nobody needs to teach you to care. How can somebody teach you to care? You either care or you don't care. You pay attention or you don't pay attention. There's no method to it. And it's as simple as that. But then if you care enough about understanding yourself, if you care enough about the problems in the world, and you see the problems in the world, you see suffering in the world, and you care, that very caring, you care, you see the problems, you want to solve the problems of the world. You want there to be not people dying in wars and from hunger and from all these other things, but you're not going at each of these problems as individual problems. You're observing the root of all these problems, because you know you can't just solve one of these problems. They all have to be solved together. You can't just solve world hunger without solving war, without solving education, without solving greed and avarice, because it all has to be solved together. Right? You can't break it apart. I mean, you can feed people. You know, they're hungry, you can give them food, but you're not curing world hunger that way. And what's causing that? What's causing people to be hungry? Right? And if you get to the root of it, right, it's us. It's the mind. It's greed. It's avarice. Like, there's enough food to feed probably everyone in the world. Why doesn't it happen? Because, well, I mean, you just look into it. I don't need to tell you, but like, you see that the problems are bigger than that, right? And you may, in this country, you focus on one particular political problem or cause, right? And you think, focus on that one cause and I will make the world a better place. But you're not. I hate to break it to you. Because that one cause is one of an infinite number of causes. They all need to be solved, not just one. So it could be plastics in the ocean, right? I mean, some people may care about that, and it is a problem. If that becomes your cause, your only cause, what causes plastic to be in the ocean, right? It's like, you may, okay, well, let's round up some boats and we'll go take all the plastic out of the ocean that's there. But there's going to be more plastic that's going to be put into the ocean. There's what put that plastic there to begin with? Are you going far enough into the problem, right, to see, well, what's causing that? And then you say, well, okay, that's our society, and you know, there's a lot of manufacturing. And I'm sort of analyzing the problem, which is not really the right thing, but just to give an example of how do you solve that problem? You may think you have a solution, but to solve any problem, you need to go into the problem itself. The problem will reveal the solution. If you understand the problem, you have to pay attention to the problem. Right? You're not going deep enough. And when you stop at a cause, you're superficial. You're at the just top layer. You're not going deep. You're not going into what's the root cause of all the problems in our society. Because would you rather solve one problem or all problems? Right? And I think you can see, well, you would prefer to solve all problems. Well, how do we solve all problems? Sounds hard. But it's like a tree has many branches, right? And there's many leaves on that tree, but there's one root that goes into the ground that all those branches, all those trees, everything comes from. Can you go to the root of the problem? Because all the problems in the world are just like the branches in a tree. And you can focus on one branch and try to trim that branch and do whatever you do to make that one branch, healthy. But if the entire tree isn't healthy, it doesn't matter how much you do to that one branch. You're not solving the tree problem. You may be solving the branch problem, but not the tree problem. And the tree may still die. So focus all your energy on that one branch, and you may feel a sense of accomplishment, and maybe that's why you're doing it. Because you're not really wanting to solve the problem. You want to feel good about yourself. You want to feel, I'm doing something, right? Maybe you live a horrible, greedy, angry, violent life, and you want to just make yourself feel better about it by joining a cause. I'm just saying, maybe, I don't know. You may say, well, I need to do something so I can feel better about all the other bad things I do in my life. So I'll donate money to this charity. And therefore I'm contributing to my, making the world a better place by donating to your favorite charity. And then still live your life the way you want to live it, miserably, maybe with hate and fear and all that. But I donate to charity, so I balance it out. It's not how it works. Well, it is how it works. It's how it is. I think that's what everyone does, right? And they think that's all they have to do. Just donate to charity or some percentage or whatever, or attend church once a week, make God happy so you go to heaven. Like, whatever it is you do that your mind or your brain has told you to do is what you do. But you're not looking deeply enough into yourself to find the root of everything, or the root of all the problems in the world. Are all the problems in the world going to be solved if we get a new politician in? So certain people may not like the current president and say, well, all we need is a new president. Problem solved. How many presidents have we had so far? Have any of them solved the problem? I mean, we're never at the solution, right? It's a pendulum swinging back and forth, never reaching anywhere. And every time the pendulum switches to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right, it's not solving the problem. It's perpetuating the problem. The pendulum has energy because of those swings, because of the left and the right together create the energy of the pendulum. You have to get out of the whole game, right? If you're just politically active because you believe in one thing, you believe in the opposite of what the other party believes, and you act on those beliefs, you're adding energy to the pendulum swing, which is the very thing you want to stop the pendulum from swinging, not make it always be up on the left side or always up on the right side. So you have to see the problems are much deeper than that. But it's easy to just complain. It's easy to just see what's in the news and complain about it and say, oh, I hate that, I hate this, I hate that. You know, this, that, see, this is the reason I believe this, and here's evidence to confirm my bias and my belief and all this. And every side does this. Every side thinks their news is better than your news. Their facts are better than your facts. And we're right, you're wrong. And it just adds energy to the whole problem. So you have to go deeper than that and say, why do we have these beliefs? Any beliefs, left, right, political, national. Why do we have any divisions? Political, national, religious. Why are there so many different nationalities? Why are there so many different religions? Why are there so many different belief systems, economic systems, political, government systems? Like, there's all this division in the world. And that is causing our problems. So the division itself is what must end. Not find the right division. Find the right faction, the right sect, the right political party. Like, that's the truth, right? Again, the truth that cannot be explained but can only be seen is to see and go into that, right? And regardless of what I say now, it doesn't mean anything if you don't see that. If you see that division is the source of all conflict in this world, and that all the problems we talked about, including starvation, including all these, violence, wars, greed, whatever it is, poverty, like, you can't solve them in isolation. And so how do you solve all of them? You have to go into it, the root of everything. And there is a root to it all. It's in the mind, right? It's of the mind, or the mind itself. The brain, the human mind is the origin of all these problems. That is for sure. Because if it weren't for the human mind and the human brain, we would not have these problems. None of it. Not pollution, not anything. It's only because of the human brain that we have all these problems. And you have to see how that is. And that doesn't mean we eliminate the human brain. It doesn't mean we eradicate humans from the planet, right? I mean, the Earth may think that's a good idea, and maybe that's what's going to happen by our own actions. If we destroy ourselves, that is what will happen. And it'll end that way. Life will go on, other life. The planet will continue. But humanity may not, because maybe humanity, But again, these are ideas. I'm not going into it this way through ideas is not the truth. And you can't let that happen. Right? So it's like you have to return to observe what's happening around us in the world, see what's going on, and go into it. And don't with any expectation, not with any preconditioning, not with any expectation, not with any nothing, right? Because if you go into it with a purpose or a mission, then that purpose or mission will distort what you see. You'll be biased. In a sense, it's the true scientific principle, maybe beyond just what science is, but to have no bias, to have no biases, to have no history. You can't remember anything. You can't let that past affect your observation, because you won't learn anything new that way. If you only see the world through the past, you're only seeing the old, never the new. to see the new, the old must die in that sense, right? The old must end, not perpetuate. If we constantly process what we're seeing and what is happening around us in the context of the past, of the old, it's never anything new. This is the reason nothing ever changes, because there must be an ending. Not a striving towards the new, but an ending of the old. And then from that, the new arises, but not a new that you understand, not a new that you come at, not a new that you can predict. So you can't understand the infinite. You can't possibly perceive truth. You can't, in your mind, capture that in any way. But you have to end what is preventing the truth from emerging. End that. And truth emerges, right? Truth may emerge. Not you may find it, but it may happen, or it may be, or it may. But again, you can't give it any conditions. Just observe what's happening. All right. I think that is enough for today, and I guess we talked about truth in many ways. Until next time.